Now, I've been talking about Star Wars on this channel for quite a bit, and I've probably had some controversial takes, but I know for a fact that this is going to be the most controversial fact that I'm going to say. And I'm saying fact because it is objectively true. It is not an opinion, it is a fact. Are you prepared? Are you prepared to handle the truth? Is your butt clenching to your seat to handle the amount of butt hurt you're about to receive? Okay, here it is. Power of the Force 2 is better than Kenner. I said it. I said it. I said it. But there's no debating there because I'm going to be talking about some of my first Kenner figures. Because Hasbro was nice enough to start reissuing their old Kenner stuff. And today we're going to be taking a look at Return of the Jedi Retro Collection for Return of the Jedi. Probably because of that big 40 number right there. Yep, makes sense. We got, I mean, you can see it, but, Gamorrean Guard, Royal Guard, Admiral Akbar, Mon Mothma, Yak Face, and good old Wicket. Wicket, not Wookit. I can make a really obnoxious joke. I'm not going to. So, I'm very excited to get this because there's a lot of value when it comes to the characters here, especially one particular figure. But let's just take a look at the rest of the box. On the back we have exactly the same thing. On here we just have some pictures of the characters. That's a nice shot for Yak Face. I guess I'm thinking that you can guess which one I'm excited for. Stupid shit nobody cares about, and then Return of the Jedi, Return of the Jedi. So, let's get this opened up. So, this is a box, obviously. Only like one or two pieces of tape holding things into place. And we just get all this out. And despite the fact that it looks like there aren't 6 figures, there are. So we have the card for the Gamorrean Guard. I always thought this card looked a little weird because like that Gamorrean Guard looked really, really green, like no paint, no detail, just very out of place. And then why is the palace blue? I don't know. Old weirdness, I guess. We have Royal Guard with a much nicer picture of him right there. We have a picture of Wicket. It's just the Ewok right there. Not much else to say. Yak Face with his purpleness, and I am very excited to have this because this is the one that I want to display. But it's really annoying that they made it way too evident that it's a reissue with this dumb red sticker here and all this fake wearing and tearing. I'm sick of this. What is up with the added on fake pseudo tearing? Is it because, oh, if your box is tore up, well, no need to get worried because our new ones look like that too, so don't worry. It all looks the same, whether it's new or used, but I don't know. This can be used effectively. Like, I remember Marvel Zombies Mini-Mates back during the day. They did that where there was a bunch of fake scuff marks on the box, but, that made sense. That was about, zombies. This is just old toy. Here you go, scuff marks. Annoying. I don't like that. We got Mon Mothma, the new figure. We'll talk about her a little later. And finally, good old Admiral Akbar. So, I am very excited to get these figures opened up, so let's go ahead and do that. So, just kidding. I bought 2 boxes, one of which I will keep in the box and on the card, because I think it's a cool thing to have. Or it would have been, except but, regardless, I still think it's a cool thing to have. And I already have all of my other figures opened up and ready on hand for review. So you don't have to worry about me traumatizing you with imagery and videos of vintage carded figures of Star Wars opened up. So let's just get straight into So we're going to first start off with the tiniest itty bitty guy on here, Wicket. And I can assume that for a lot of people, this is probably gonna be the least good of the 6. Though he does make sense. The Ewoks and Endor as a whole was an important segment of Return of the Jedi, the greatest Star Wars movie, by the way. But I feel like the main reason this one isn't as good is because of the size. I mean, he's the same price as this one. I feel like they probably could have included a second one. But I guess that's how vintage Star Wars was. You got a smaller figure, we're not going to include him with anything. He's just the same as everyone else on the card. Meanwhile, like Power of the Force 2, you got like 2 Jawas, or like with Wicket, I don't actually remember. I think he was in like a 2-pack. Or like Yoda, he would come with something for your Luke. In fact, I feel like he was probably also part of a 2-pack. But everyone wants to complain about nowadays how, oh, we're getting like a deluxe cliff jumper who's shorter, but he also comes with all this extra stuff. Scam, scam, scam. But then you get this, and this is like, yeah. But you know what? Since you're getting all of these in a 6-pack anyways, that are inseparable, I don't feel like it's too much of an issue because with 2 of the figures, you're certainly making up for the value with this guy. So, hey, it's fine. Do I need to talk about articulation? It's a vintage figure. There you go. He's just a small little man. He has these. Actually, I think almost all of them just have a stick, just a singular colored, cheap-looking stick. You know, I feel like someone made I forget his name. He made a Star Wars Follies on the last 2 lines, Return of the Jedi and the Power of the Force, not the second one, the first one. And the reason he did it for Return of the Jedi is because they all just had shitty weapons. I don't think anyone came with a gun except for maybe like a scout trooper. Most of them came with like this. So, yeah. Cool. Anyways, you can take this off, and he looks like a teddy bear. I think it's neat that you can take it off. So yeah, he's kind of like R2-D2, where like a majority of the figure looks pretty decent, especially for the time. The sculpt work actually looks pretty great for the 80s. But that face, he has these brown eyes that are very inaccurate. Him, the Wampa, R2, a lot of them had really dopey looking faces that didn't match the rest of it. And they only exist just to make the figures look cheaper. That's probably not the reason why they are there. I don't know. I wasn't alive during the 80s. You can tell. Power of the Force 2 is better than Kenner. I said it. But yeah, I mean, he's fine. Definitely the least interesting, but, you know, whatever. Get the fuck out of here. Next up, we got the Gamorrean Guard. And I feel like this is a very standard vintage Star Wars figure, because you get a lot of people like Super 7 or the Next 17 who try to make vintage Star Wars stuff, but they all look way too simplistic. They just look like bootlegs, honestly. But then you have this guy where, yeah, he's under-detailed, but he still is mostly correct. Like, he's got the greens, the browns, the silvers. Those are all fairly accurate to how a Gamorrean Guard looks like. The only thing that keeps this guy from looking like a modern figure is the softer sculpting and the eye color. It's yellow instead of black. So, yeah. I mean, for the time, this is still pretty nice. There's a lot of details that are pretty good, especially the sandals. And the one thing I don't like about this figure is he's got no head articulation. That's kind of unfortunate. He does have a pretty good weapon, though, so yeah, I mean, it is just a stick, but it's a nice-looking stick, and it's at least painted, so, you know, there's that. I'm going to compare most of these figures with some of the later ones. I don't have the Vintage Collection Gamorrean Guard because it's really expensive, which is unfortunate because I've heard nothing but fantastic things about it. So instead, I'm just going to compare it with the only thing I know, Power of the Force 2. It's weird, this toy line ended before I was even born, but I still have a lot of them, mostly as hand-me-downs, but there's some pretty cool hand-me-downs. Anyways, you can tell the evolution of these figures by quite a bit. I think these are a bit too thin. They look too squashed on the head. I feel like the shape here is a lot better, but like, you know, otherwise, yeah, the new one just looks way better. It's got much nicer sculpting, much nicer details, and much nicer painting. Although, you know, obviously he's a little scuffed because I had this as a kid. And also, I don't know, he's got like green Play-Doh in his nose and his mouth. That's probably throwing it off a little bit. Also, take note, his eyes are also the wrong color. So, yeah, they're supposed to be black. They're just white. I mean, not a big deal, but, you know, whatever. So, yeah, I mean, this is a pretty decent figure, but just, I don't know. Just get the vintage. Actually, I think this is sadly probably the most affordable one. Wait, what am I talking about? It's like, oh, you'd have to get this thing on the secondhand market and the vintage collection's expensive. This is Power of the Force 2, you bellend. Those things are like as cheap can be. I am so dumb. Next, we got Emperor's Royal Guard. I feel like a lot of the picks here are really representative of just how Star Wars Return of the Jedi goes in terms of pacing. You got 2 figures for Jabba's Palace. You got 2 for, like, the, I don't know, the Rebel base stuff. I feel like that's a little overrepresented. You got this for the Emperor scene, which I kind of, to be honest, I would have preferred an Emperor Palpatine in this 6-pack as opposed to what we'll be talking about next. And we got 1 Ewok. I mean, that probably could have used more representation, but, like, who gives a shit? Anyways, Emperor's Royal Guard has always been one of the coolest enemy designs. I feel like most people will agree with that. And I think the first time I saw the vintage figure was in Micah, this YouTuber, keep forgetting how to pronounce his name. He used to go over, like, the evolution of Star Wars figures. And when he went over the Royal Guard figures, I was like, wait, which one's the vintage? Because this figure has aged incredibly. Like, of course, the articulation's pretty basic. It just has the arms and the legs, but, like, all of the details there. He has cloth goods. He's still a normal figure otherwise. The only thing that has aged on this figure is the articulation, and his spear does look very, very cheap and simplistic. That's it. Everything else about this guy has aged super gracefully, and I'm really glad that this guy got to be in this 6-pack. Now let's compare him to some of the other ones. I don't have the spears. Anyways, this is the one that I grew up with as a kid. I mean, at least he's tall, but, like... You know what the worst part is? When I had this as a kid, I got a Wat Tambor, and I was really disappointed to find out that he did not have this underneath, but actual feet. I don't know why this bothered me. I want him to be more cheap, like this guy is basically a chocolate bar. But yeah, I mean, this guy has aged way worse than this one. I mean, you know what? The rubber robes isn't inherently a terrible idea, but, like, it just looks so outdated. Not terrible, but I mean, this toy is very not good. I don't concede on a lot of the takes of many of these Power of the Force 2 figures being the worst. I feel like a lot of people hate on this line way too much, but this is the one time I will concede and be like, yeah, this is probably the worst Royal Guard. And then you compare him with the Vintage Collection, which is insanely good. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I feel like this one even looks a little better because, like, the head's shinier, whereas this is a lot cheaper because it's rubber, mostly because you can take it off. I feel like even the robes feel a little better. Like, this is thicker. This feels a little cheap. Maybe I'm in the wrong there. But I mean, like, underneath, yeah, it's an actual action figure. So, I mean, all I'm saying is you could put these two next to each other, and they both look pretty close to a great, or the best, Royal Guard you can have. So, yeah, this is definitely one of the better figures of the 6. And if you could only get one of these, I don't know how that would work. It probably would be him, but, well, we'll see. Next, Admiral Akbar. You know, I do like Admiral Akbar. Usually I wouldn't turn down the opportunity to have an Admiral Akbar, but I don't know. I feel like I'd rather have either an Emperor or a Jabba. Oh, no, come on, you fucking cheap ass. Hey, they gave us a Wii.
The big old Boy Scout.
The boy! They gave us the Ewok, really tiny. Why not, like, 5 times bigger than the other's Jabba the Hutt? I mean, that's a great deal, right? I do want to get a vintage Jabba one day. But you know what? I'm still happy with this guy. You know, Admiral Akbar, he's cool. And this is probably the least good of Admiral Akbar figures out there. Notice I didn't say bad, because it seems that, like, Admiral Akbar is impossible to make a bad toy of. Even the Bendums was basically this guy, but, like, doing a T-pose. Not that bad. Though, I mean, you compare him to, like, this guy, who is a very underrated Power of the Force 2 figure. This figure's pretty good. I'd say he's, like, as good as the Bosk, but, like, with better paint applications. And this isn't even the best Admiral Akbar. The Saga Collection? Vintage Collection? Whatever one. That one? Oh my god, that one is like insanely good. I wish I could get that one, but you know, do I really need it? Do I really need it? Yes. Anyways, he comes with a stick because I guess he just talks in the movie, but like, come on, man. The real issue with this line, like I said, I'm just taking this from another YouTuber, but they don't have weapons. What even is that? That's not even a weapon. Like, I don't know, at least the Ewok came with like a stick that you could poke people with, a sphere. That's just a little wand, an instructor's wand. Hey, at least he could be like a Harry Potter figure. Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's an aged toy of Admiral Akbar, but at the same time, it's still really good. So, it is what it is. Next up, Mon Mothma. This is not a vintage figure, but instead a new toy designed to look vintage. But I'm going to be straight up honest, looks like shit. You can easily tell that this didn't come from the actual vintage line. You know why? Simple. She comes with an actual weapon. What is this? A weapon in a Return of the Jedi line toy? Not in my house. You have to have a useless stick or wand or whatever. This is just not gonna do it. But I will say, as far as trying to replicate the style of the old toys, this is actually one of the better ones. Take a close look at the face. It is simplistic, but it actually is trying to replicate like an actual sculpt of the character, not just be like, hey, black lines, your little tiny mouth and nose, that's it at the end of the day. Also, there's actual decent sculpt work when it comes to the dress. Decent colors. It just doesn't have that much detail. You know, like, I'm not trying to shame them, but like the next 17, they look cool, but like this does not look like Effont Mon, because Effont Mon had lots of dark colors and greens and stuff. It looks like they're trying to replicate like a pre-alpha for a New Hope toys, not what vintage Star Wars actually looked like, which was mostly this. My only qualm is that, okay, they did Mon Mothma because she was one of the characters that was missing from the original line. So if that's the case, why haven't they done a Tarkin yet? I would be really interested to see what a Tarkin would look like. Unfortunately, I don't have a figure to compare with this Mon Mothma. I'm sorry. I don't get these fucking characters, okay? I'm sorry. What, you want me to get the Power of the Force 2 figure? The vintage collection? Does that even exist? What now? You want me to get a figure fucking Holdo? I'm not doing this shit. I'm not fucking doing... Sorry, I freaked out there. I don't even know why. Anyways, I did find that I do have a second Mon Mothma figure to compare with, so here she is. I'm sorry, I have a fucking hangover.
Oh my god, no, he's gonna rape me.
And finally, probably the biggest figure here, we got a reissue of Vintage Yak Face. So where to start? Well, there's two sides of why this guy is so valuable. We'll go over the universal reason. So, Yak Face was one of the rarest figures in the Power of the Force line, or just Star Wars in general. And the reason for that is because he was, I think, the last vintage figure made, and he wasn't released in the United States. Very scarce run, because, I mean, it's Yak Face. Who actually cares about Yak Face as a character, right? And the fact that the vintage line's already so expensive and collectible, that just means that he's, even without any of the card, I think probably the rarest character. There are more valuable figures, but they're usually variants, like blue Snaggletooth, just get the red Snaggletooth, telescoping Darth Vader and Luke, I think, if those even exist. I'm pretty sure they do. A very, very short run of Jawas with like a different cape. Anakin Skywalker on the card. This guy, just universally, even without being on the card loose, it's pretty expensive. Not even I, probably the biggest Yak Face fan ever, won't even touch that. I even saw one that was in such bad shape, he was missing a head and he was still running for like $500. And on the card,
Asia can forget about it.
So the fact that they reissued that figure, which was so hard to get for so many real Yak Face fans, is pretty cool. Now, why do I like Yak Face so much? Well, you see, I was always a fan of like the cool random background characters for Star Wars, and while this guy isn't the coolest, when it comes to Jabba's palace, my older brother already called dibs on a lot of the guys that I wanted, like Effont Mon and Hermie Yodel. So I had a couple of options left, and the one I chose that I called him like I want him was not a Man, which is the one I liked the most that wasn't picked. I don't know why neither of us went for a Man, but Yak Face. So, I think, no, I've already told this story, but for my 9th birthday, I had like the coolest birthday ever. So many cool gifts and experiences, including Five Guys. I bet you've never had Five Guys for your birthday. But the peak of that was the old Power of the Force figure. That was the peak. So imagine my shock when finding out the most rare and most valuable figure in the original lineup was Yak Face. My character. Mine. No one else's. No one else ever liked Yak Face before me. That might actually be true. I'm not sure. But yeah, my love for the character has nothing to do with how rare the original toy was. That was just an afterthought. It was just because I was a dumbass. But anyways, how is this figure? How is the actual old Yak Face? Well, you know what? I actually think he aged fairly well. He's got all the right colors and all the right details for his suit. I mean, obviously, he's not as good as the newest one, but for the time, it's pretty accurate. He's also got a very nicely detailed head, but just underpainted, and maybe the sculpting is a little too soft. He's also got these giant hands, so he can hold his weapons way better than most of the other figures. And then he's also got the stick, but it's like an axe, I guess. That's at least something. I mean, it's no blaster, but, you know, for these background characters like the Cantina crew, or, say, Jabba's palace, I think it's fine. They don't need actual weapons. If they just want to carry cool-looking staffs around, perfectly fine with me. But all I'm saying is, Hammerhead had a weapon. Where's your excuse, cunt? I probably shouldn't have done that. So since I'm such a giant fan of the character, it's obvious that he's going to have the most amount of counterparts to compare to. Here is the 90s figure, and as much as I love this toy, I actually think that this one's probably a bit more accurate. I will say, the blending from the head to the coat to the body, it's a lot better. Like, it looks so natural here, whereas this, there's like so many obvious cutoffs, it looks a little unnatural. But I think otherwise, yeah, this guy probably is a little better. His proportions are way better. Like, this is such a tiny head for the character, where here it's all big and ugly looking, which is pretty accurate. Also, like, it looks kind of neat because orange and blue is a very nice color combination, but it's just not accurate to the character, like, at all. And also, his back, I actually tried washing this off because it looked like he had dirt on him. But nope. What the fuck? Okay. That's just how the old toy was. So, I love this toy. And he's the only one I don't have his staff with because this was my actual childhood toy and I'm not buying another one. It's probably the least good because the least good is certainly not this next one. The vintage collection. Oh my goodness, this figure is so dope. Basically takes the best of both worlds here and just culminates into this fantastic figure. It's so good. Shockingly, it's a 3 3/4 inch figure that has these ball jointed hips that doesn't actually suck because there's a bicep swivel, so he can go back and forth like normal, so that's not affected, but he can also kick outwards. Now there's still some like joints because of the way that it's connected. It's not connected in here because it's too small. It's connected up here. It'll be a little bit awkward, but hey, you know, all the vintage figures, they just had this movement. So, you know, that's all you really expect. So this, it's a bonus. So yeah, I'm really happy with this figure. And here is the vintage compared to the vintage collection. I feel like the best comparison is between the staffs. So, yeah, awesome. But we're not done yet. I do want to make one more comparison. Here he is with the reproduction. Let's see if you can compare and contrast and tell the difference. Now, some key elements is this head sculpt is a little bit wider. This one's eyes are a bit more sloped. Maybe it's just an angle thing, but no, I think there's definitely a difference, especially in person. I think the biggest giveaway is his legs are facing inwards, whereas his are spread out. The real one's spreading out. So you can tell that there. Probably the biggest giveaway is the staff. Also, the hand colors are drastically different. It's not showing up, is it? Okay, probably not. But like these are way darker. But the staff colors are very different. I don't know if it's like this might just be a reissue thing where they gave him a brighter staff. But, you know, it's nice to have. I was perfectly content with this being my vintage yak face. I mean, it costed me $50. I mean, that was already pretty expensive, and it looks close enough. But it's nice to have kind of a real thing. But, you know, you never know with these new Hasbro reissues, like the Beast Wars ones, or like different colors to be more accurate. So maybe there's something that's up. I don't know.
It's me, Handy. Oh my fucking god, this is so stupid. Anyways, yes, the staffs, I believe, the reproduction. No, not the reproduction. The reissue. They changed the staff color. I believe the original was always like a dark gray. The newer ones are a light gray. There's your pro tip.
Originally, I felt kind of bad for owning this because there was that one guy who's like,
Hey, you can't stop buying these reproductions. The real ones are losing their value. You're gonna trick people.
and I was like, you know what? Maybe. And now that I have a real one, I'm like, should I even have this? But after looking into what that guy's been doing and a lot of the other controversies that guy's been getting in, yeah, safe to say, I don't think I care about that guy's opinion anymore. I'm fine with having both these. If you have a problem with it, I'll buy 3 more. No, I won't. These things are still expensive, reproduction or not. Speaking of which, by the way, did you know that they reproduced the Star Wars droids canceled second wave? I would get those, but they're $80 a pop. If you want to get all of them, I think it's $600, which is basically all of the money I can spend in a month, not counting bills and stuff. So, yeah, maybe one day, Hasbro, now's your chance to step in. You know, I don't have to count on reproductions. You can send me the real ones for cheaper. I would love to spend $20 on a... I can never remember this guy's name, but I love that guy. This is my favorite game of all time, very clearly. Oh, no, don't look in my porn. No. God damn it. No. Or a gaff. Well, I keep talking about that. You send me some. Yeah, please send me some. I would love some of that, right? And there you have it. That is where's the box so I can read this properly? Star Wars Return of the Jedi 6 Retro Collection 6-pack. What are our thoughts on this? Well, overall, it's pretty good. You get a new figure that a lot of people felt were missing from the original vintage line. You get Yak Face. These 3 figures are pretty cool. And then Wicket just exists and isn't very good. Overall, pretty cool. And if you're a fan of vintage Star Wars, I do recommend you get it. Especially if you're missing some of these figures. Especially if that figure happens to be Yak Face. I don't know, maybe people complain, oh, they reissued it. The original is no longer as valuable. Even though there's still dead giveaway signs that the reproductions are reproduction, not an original. Is that why they made those changes? Of course it is. Okay, well, anyways, I'm going to go fuck my... Hippo. Yeah, I'm going to go do that.